Hi, I'm Remus Pereni, CTO of Yonder, and together with Daniel Lar, our MD, and Christian Incho, one of our business unit directors, we are going to discuss about the importance of culture and in collaboration. So, considering that we are working with companies on the same continent or even on different continents, how important is culture, company culture, but also culture of different countries in a successful collaboration?
Well, obviously we're coming from different cultures in terms of nationality, and there are quite a few differences in cultures, but I think we need to talk first about the culture within the relationship. And I would say it's very important. Actually, culture in any organization is, well, in the words of Patrick Lencioni, culture is a multiplier of intelligence. So you can have very intelligent people, but if they are not aligned, the results are, below expectations. Yeah, I think that the big goal is to make sure that you have alignment at all levels and that everybody knows why we're doing what we're doing and that everybody is committed to the cause, to the goal, but you cannot be committed to something that you don't know. So that's why, again, I think one key ingredient in the culture discussion is alignment and in making sure that everybody understands why we're doing what we're doing. And I remember just one example from the past. Maybe 10 years ago, we used to just ask the question, what needs to be done? And now when we start doing something with the customer, we start with the question, why do we need to do this? Because the why question will drive the what question, or the how question, how are we going to go about it? And well, we discussed about the architectural part, we're not just implementing something, but actually we're asking, right. Why do you need this? What's the business case? And if we understand it, we can contribute as a true partner with a maybe different solution or different perspective to that.
You mentioned about collaboration at different levels. How would you define a successful collaboration with your customers? How do those levels, let's say, interact with each other?
Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, we steer our collaborations on different levels. And it all starts with regular daily meetings between the teams or the team and the product owner on the other side to make sure that what we are going to do in the following day, it's what it's actually intended. On the other hand, we keep two tracks of overwatching collaborations. One is on a technical level and one is on a top management level. And on a technical level, we have the structure that we call a tech board, or software architects, or really high-skilled people that will overwatch the team developments over the multiple screens. Those guys are really overwatching technologies on the market, components, and they suggest the team different improvements in the way they work and also on the technologies that they are using. On the other hand, on a management level, we have so-called monthly meetings or steering committees where we involve top management from Yonder side, but also from a customer side, and where we openly discuss about team performance, about reaching objectives, about budgets, forecasting, but also about flexibility or scalability as needed, as well as future roadmaps or different other developments in our collaboration.
So practically there are kind of multiple targets on different tracks. Of course you have financial and business targets, you have technical architectural targets that you need to meet, and of course you have functional targets you need to implement. So practically you ensure that you have communication and collaboration at all these levels. So practically all these different targets are kind of monitored and tracked in the same time.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah. And maybe just adding to that, it's also the same concept of horizons, because with the team you might have a short-term goal for the current sprint or the next release, so to speak. But in the cooperation between two companies, you need to know which are the strategic objectives for the next year, couple of years, and so forth. And if you know that, you can contribute with ideas, with proposals, supporting the customer strategy in that direction.
Okay. Many of our customers, especially the ones that start a new relationship with us, are not always clear what to expect in terms of collaboration. Sometimes they compare us to big outsourcing companies like Indian and the Indian culture. What would be the major difference, for instance, between our way of working together with our customers and, for instance, the typical outsourcing level that people kind of know of?
Well, I would say first that all companies in the outsourcing world are making steps to improve. So I think that improvement is happening in all parts of the world. But besides that, very oftentimes customers are just expecting or have this idea that outsourcing means delegating something small and discrete to be done without necessarily having to give the wider context. And that's why we're focusing so much on this understanding of the business context of the customer, because that's really driving our choices and proposals in terms of technology and process and so forth. And one thing which comes along with that is the need for continuous communication. So it's not like this idea of you throw over the wall a package of work and you patiently wait for that to come back in 3 months or 6 months, but rather that it's a continuous discussion. And we have different ways in which we express that, but besides what Christy mentioned, the daily and the agile activities and also the monthly management reviews, we saw a good practice is also actually meeting together, a couple of times a year, spending a couple of days together, and really understanding, the business of the customer and where it's going, and coming with, proactive ideas on that. Or the hackathon, for instance, where we're actually building prototypes in a short amount of time for customers based on their input or on our knowledge of the product, ideas which can be used by them in the future.
Isn't it a bit weird to ask companies about their, let's say, why, the reasons, the major, let's say, drivers of their business and things like that? Isn't that something very specific for their own business and not something they need to share with others?
Well, they're not forced to share that with us, but I think the more info we know, the better we're able to help and to understand the context. So actually, we saw a direct correlation between the level of partnership and the satisfaction of the customer and of the team working there. So actually, we're doing regular customer satisfaction reviews and also employee satisfaction reviews. And we noticed that the more goal-oriented we are in a cooperation, the clearer the goal and the clearer, the path to get there, the higher the satisfaction is. And, we've seen, extreme examples of that, where in one extreme you have a very challenging project, but where the culture was very good, the team very united, and everybody knowing exactly what they have to accomplish. And even if the goal was very challenging, it was achieved. Or other situations where the goals were by far not as challenging, but the cooperation was not as open and as transparent as it can be, and the speed was actually lower. So again, culture is a multiplier for effort and intelligence, and if you use it in the right way, and if you make sure that the problems are being addressed, and we have the courage to put it on the table and to discuss about the sensitive topics, I think it really makes a big difference in the bottom line.
What would be the best practices when discussing about communication, collaboration, and in general culture?
Yeah, it all starts with the way we are kicking off collaborations nowadays, a more sophisticated way that we've done it 10 years ago. And that means that we need to understand business goals and long-term objectives of our partners. And by having these on our side and having Yonder culture, which actually encourages people to become innovative and proactive, using electronic means like Skype, video conferencing systems, and so on, we ensure an open communication between the teams or the team and the product owner on the other side.
So even if the teams are disconnected, they're actually staying in touch almost on a daily basis?
Yeah, they can be in contact in video calls and in audio calls, one-to-one or group meetings at any time of the day.
Do you think it will work just by electronic means, or sometimes it's required also some visits to customers from the customer?
It works on a certain level, but what we also do is that from the get-going, we establish a plan of team visits on-site and off-site. So let's say at least twice a year a customer or customer team visits Yonder in Cluj, or Yonder team visits the customer at least once a year. In this way, actually, we bound relations on a different level, This creates openness, trust, so then people become more proactive and more open to ask questions, to solve problems, to come up with ideas.
I can imagine that sometimes, let's say, the domain knowledge of a specific product, especially for a new collaboration, can be quite high and difficult to kind of do a knowledge transfer. Would be the best practices in approaching projects that require a lot of knowledge to be transferred prior to actually being effective?
What we do in these specific cases is that we follow two separate tracks. One is on technical level, where the technical guys are setting up things together, studying a platform or setting up a framework and tools. On the other hand, on a domain level, we have our own specialists in gathering requirements. We have tools that support us, and we stay close to domain experts on customer side to build a basic knowledge base on which the team can start working. And during the project lifetime, actually, we encourage both teams to collaborate closely to gather as much as possible the knowledge in the systems that will provide a long-term knowledge base for what we build. And in this sense, we can preserve knowledge beyond people.
Does this work for situations in which, for instance, you have quite a large time zone difference? I mean, I can imagine that in case you're talking about nearshoring companies around us, that time zone is not a problem. But what happens in situations in which you have 8, 9, 10 hours of difference?
At this very moment, we run a few collaborations, as you mentioned, with the United States and Canada. East Coast or West Coast. So the time zone is significant, but still there is enough overlapping time, which we call the sweet spot, in which the teams can work together. And that's a thing that we manage quite efficiently.
And actually what we discovered in a funny way, that working with a very different time zone gives the teams the chance to work around the clock somehow. I mean, you work here for 8 hours, then you pass your questions, and you know that by the time you come back to the office tomorrow, your questions will be answered by the other side, because they'll have finished their workday on the other side of the world.
Do you know some, let's say, anti-patterns, some things that not to follow when discussing about communication or collaboration?
Yeah. One thing which I would mention is allowing or setting unrealistic expectations. And I think it's always difficult to say a difficult thing, but the more time passes, the more difficult it is. So actually, a good saying I heard is, bad news doesn't get better with time. So it's important to make sure that you are open to each other, and when you see a challenge, and actually what we're doing now, even with risks, we have a way to manage the risks, the theoretical risks, and we try to have a plan for what we're going to do if this happens, before it happens, because it's better to think proactively and not reactively when something happens, because then it's too late very often to do. So I think the basic condition for successful cooperation is the right attitude, openness, and I would say even courage on both sides to address the difficult issues, because addressing difficult issues is gonna fix the relationship. Not addressing them just pushes them in the hidden part, but they are still there, and they will undermine the relationship. So this capacity to address issues, I think, is key, especially at the management level, to be able to maintain a good relationship.
And there is another key ingredient on which this one is based, is the willingness and openness to get in touch, to stay in touch, and actually to be responsive to each other. That's also very important if we talk about business culture.
Yeah, because sometimes people can expect that outsourcing will be easy from the work perspective, and it is easy because somebody else is taking over some things you're doing, so it should help. But it doesn't eliminate the need to stay in touch, and you need to make a commitment to stay in touch regularly to make it work.
Right, so that raises the next question. How much involvement is expected from the customers to maintain that kind of good collaboration and to make sure that the project is on track and is successful? Because I imagine it's not something like you put it on autopilot and you forget about it, and again, as you mentioned, you throw it over the wall and you will probably expect it when it should be ready.
Well, it really depends on the level of collaboration and the amount of work and the way that we share responsibilities. And it can vary from having a dedicated product owner that is fully dedicated for a team or to multiple teams on our side. That's on a very operational level. But it can vary on having just 0.5 product owner or having somebody on user acceptance level or so. On the other hand, it requires some investment in time from a management perspective. That means that managers on a project level, on a company level, will need to spend a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting or maybe once every 2 month meetings together with Yonder management to steer this collaboration in the most efficient way. So it requires a level of involvement. On the other hand, as Daniel mentioned previously, we send out every quarter a customer satisfaction survey that also needs a bit of attention because it's key for how we drive the team. It's key for people performance evaluation at the end of the year, and actually it's the moment when we transparently evaluate the collaboration on a big lines.
You mentioned that different levels of collaboration, and I would imagine each company has its own particularities. How flexible is the collaboration between companies? I mean, is the process fixed and practically we apply it to everybody, or we can customize, tune to match the individual relationship and project profile?
You know, quick answer would be that the principles and the values are the same. And of course, the way you apply it can differ depending on the time zone, depending on how easy it is to visit each other. So there are lots of differences in terms of culture, distance, context, size of the application of the product that you're working on, the phase of the product. Are you in a starting phase with a new initiative? Are you in a rebuilding phase, or are you just in maintaining a product? So it differs, but I think the principles of being aligned on the why, staying close to each other, reviewing regularly things and addressing them openly to each other, I think those are key in any cooperation.
How much visibility in general do the customer have into the processes that happen inside the team? So are they in control? Do they see how things are going? How do they kind of can be sure that things are on track?
In most of the collaboration that we have, customer wants to be in control and have at least things in their radar. And by having those agile methodologies and communication lines on a digital level, they can access in real time all the evolutions in the team. They can overlook the collaboration on a sprint level, on a release level, on a product level, from different perspectives, on a workload, on budgets, on hours spent on different topics with different roles. So we ensure full transparency in it. That's part of our culture as well. It depends on the customer how much he wants to be involved and how much he wants to spend his time on it.
Yeah, and what I would add here, we want to be very transparent on the results, and we want to have very objective ways of measuring the results. And that's why we've put in place all kinds of KPIs, key performance indicators, which help us make the work transparent to the customer. I think it's important that we're aligned on the why, why we're doing what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. And then we as partners, we have the freedom to approach the how. I mean, find the best way, best team setup sometimes to reach those objectives. But there should be clear alignment on, are we going in the right direction? Are we going at the right speed, right quality? And that needs to be transparent and needs to be managed from the very beginning.
So how, again, from a collaboration perspective, is the team going to be visible? I mean, are the guys going to meet actually the team members, know exactly who is working on the project, or this is something completely opaque? They will have one manager to discuss with and nothing else?
No, that's generally available. Both sides really want to meet each other, either if it's on a Skype meeting or video calls or face-to-face, but both the teams and customer, they want to know each other on a personal level as well. So we provide means to access the team. The team actually has direct access to anybody. On the customer side, the same customer has access directly to anybody from the team. And we encourage this.
And after all, we're a technology company, but we're in a people business. It's really, services are about people, and that means a lot of interaction between people, and that's the way it should be.
So, if you mentioned that it's about it's a people business, how you maintain consistency? How do you guarantee that, for instance, each team performs in the same manner, that they are having the same collaboration and communication standards, let's say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can ask how technical people are communicating and how this develops over the time. I guess that's the question.
Sometimes that's a challenge with technical people, yes.
Well, to be honest, we developed quite a sophisticated way of training our people from all different levels. And I will start by having some examples on a leadership level, or Scrum Masters, or top performers in our company. They benefit from regular soft skills trainings internally, held by our experienced guys on this topic, or having external trainers. But on the other side, we benefit from what our group, TSS, is organizing year by year. So we constantly send people over to meet other guys, to have knowledge sharing sessions, and to perform better from day to day in this direction. From the other levels, like senior developers, medias, or juniors, or testers, we arrange internally with professional support all sorts of trainings related to communication, customer focus, effective development. So we ensure that even technical people can efficiently communicate.